Hello and welcome. I am really excited to share some incredible women that I am talking to that have gone through pregnancy loss, and their loss has inspired them to work in the community, helping other bereaved moms, and some have even started their own business. And so today I am really excited to have with me Jackie Bilsky. And Jackie, where are you at right now? Where do you live?
I live in Calgary, Alberta, here in Canada.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we connected.
Yes, me too, me too. So I wanted to just start with just asking you to share your story of your pregnancy loss, and yeah, we could just start from there.
Yeah. Um, so we had our loss was in May of 2016. I was pregnant with our second child. Our first child. He is an amazing, wonderful, energetic, loving little boy, and he turns 5 next month. I had an amazing, wonderful pregnancy, and the only thing that I was concerned about was a miscarriage. And once I hit that 12-week mark, I thought, phew, 12 weeks, we're out of the woods, it's all good, I'm gonna have this baby. And we did. And I was very innocent and naive. And looking back, I'm very glad that I had that experience. So we had our son, and we decided to try again right away for another baby. So we got pregnant after he turned 1, and we were, excuse me, we were expecting again in the summer of 2016. And I went, it was an amazing, perfect, wonderful pregnancy up until our 20-week anatomy scan. And we were going for the anatomy scan to make sure everything was okay. We were going to find out the gender. We were so excited. We had Grayson with us. And the doctor came in afterwards and told us that there was something wrong, that there was things with the baby and the measurements on her body that was concerning. So that took us on an 8-week journey of testing and up and down, and it could be this, it could be that. And 8 weeks later, on May 2nd, we received a confirmed medical diagnosis that was not compatible with life. So I ended up delivering her on May 4th at 27 weeks pregnant, and she was born sleeping. And I felt it, we were devastated. I didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to, where to turn. I felt so alone. I shut the world out. And it was devastating. And I hadn't known anybody else who had gone through what I had. I have friends and family who've had miscarriages, sadly, but I felt like it's not the same. So it took me a really long time to finally start opening up. And we got pregnant again about 6 months later, and ended up we did have a rainbow baby after Violet, and she's now 2 years old. And that pregnancy was a roller coaster, because pregnancy after loss is a whole other can of worms. I was nervous, anxious, I didn't enjoy my pregnancy. I didn't feel happy. I just felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, some things like this cannot be real. So, but we had her. She's healthy. She's amazing. And I felt like in 2018, I turned a corner, and I felt like this is not working for me. I just felt like I was so emotionally charged, and I had these ideas running through my head, and I had started journaling and started writing, and I thought, I've got to do something about this. And I literally woke up one day and it just felt like a light bulb had gone off, and I was like, I have to do something. So I decided to do some writing, and I thought, I'm going to write a book. And I didn't know where to start. And along the way, after our loss, I felt like I fell through the cracks within our healthcare system. I wasn't directed to any sort of counseling or group services or anything, any of the services that are offered here in the city. Nobody said anything, and there were a few at the time, but now there's more. Thankfully, there's more. So 2018, I was talking with a friend about our loss and about Violet, and she had told me of a woman who is a pregnancy and infant loss healing coach. She said, have you ever heard of her? She does a monthly meetup with other lost moms. I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to join. So I dove in and I joined, and here we are a year later, and that little monthly meetup has now grown into a full registered charity here in the city called Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support Center, run by a woman named Aditi Loveridge. And she's become a dear close friend of mine, and I now do volunteer work for the center, and I run those social groups, that monthly group that I first started attending. I'm now running that for other lost moms. So it's been a long journey of isolation, and now I feel like I'm bursting at the seams with all of these ideas, and I'm now connected to all of these amazing people who I wasn't connected to 3 years ago. And it's just made the world of difference in my healing and my journey. And now I'm so fired up about getting people connected and plugged in right away, because I felt so alone. And anybody else going through this, it feels so isolating, and you feel like you're the only person in the world who's going through this. Nobody could ever possibly understand or know what you're going through. But I want to say, you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. And there's an army of people waiting to support you in any way that we can.
Yes, I agree completely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to go back to something that you mentioned with your pregnancy with your son, with your first pregnancy. And you mentioned that once you hit the 12-week mark, you were like, everything's okay, I'm in the clear, and nothing to worry about. And in that case, that was true. And what I want to say is, I feel like a lot of women have that same misconception, right? I know I did when I lost my baby, because I lost my baby right at the 12-week mark. And I thought, no, I'm in the clear. Like, I had some bleeding, and I was like, no, I mean, I'm sure it's fine, because I'm at the 12-week mark. I'm past my first trimester. In my mind, I thought that miscarriage only happened in the first trimester. I had no idea of stillbirth, of like any of those other types of other losses through any other time. That was all I knew. And again, I feel like so many women do have that misconception. And I mean, just society in general, right? We're talk about just first trimester miscarriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's unfortunately so common, but nobody talks about it because somewhere along the way, it became this hush-hush taboo topic that we don't talk about. It's a private thing. We're supposed to keep it private and intimate, but that's not serving anybody.
It's not.
And it's sad and it's tragic and it's devastating, and there are so many tragic stories, and there are so many things that can go wrong at any point during a pregnancy. And it's just so sad, and it makes people uncomfortable that nobody wants to talk about it. And like I said, we're not doing anybody any favors, because when something does happen at 12, 14, 16, 39 weeks, we're taken by surprise.
Right.
And that's not the reality. Like once you hit 12 weeks, you're not in the clear. And it's just sadly not the reality. But somewhere along the way, society has made it for us to think that.
I agree. And I also think that there's a lot of, like for me in particular, I didn't tell anybody I was pregnant because I was waiting until I got through that first trimester. So then when I lost the baby at 12 weeks, I had nobody to talk to because I didn't tell anybody I lost the baby. So how could I share about my loss? And I feel like that happens to a lot of women. And so now when I work with my clients, as soon as they find out they're pregnant, I encourage them to share with other people right away, because
Celebrate it.
Yeah, celebrate it. There is a baby, and it is time to share with other people and not to be in hiding, because I feel like that kind of hiding partially creates some of that isolation.
Yes. Yeah, because if anything does happen, you don't have that support.
Right.
And how can you make that phone call of saying, I just lost my baby, when people don't even know you were pregnant in the first place?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so tell me, yeah. So if you don't mind, I want to go now to your scan, when you had the scan and they told you there was some anomaly, but they couldn't diagnose anything. And so you said it was 8 weeks. That's 2 months of uncertainty. Like, how, I'm just trying to think about putting myself in your shoes, which I certainly cannot. But I'm just thinking about how much turmoil that would be for 2 months, having to wait and not know. Can you share a little bit more about some of that?
Yeah. So in that initial ultrasound, they saw that her arms and legs were very short, that they weren't growing the way they should be, and that her legs were crooked. And they didn't know why. So I was referred to a genetics specialist at the MFM clinic. And I chose to have an amniocentesis done so that they could do some testing. And at first, they didn't know what it was. They had some speculations. They had mentioned possible Down syndrome or possible dwarfism, but they didn't know. So they ran testing of what they thought it might be, and everything came back negative. And along these 8 weeks, I kept going in for extra checkups and extra ultrasounds. And with every test that was ruled out, they would try one more. Okay, well, we'll test for this. Okay, this one's negative. We'll test for that. And then finally, the genetics specialist had consulted with somebody else, and he said, actually, I think there's a possibility that it could be OI, which is osteogenesis imperfecta, which is brittle bones. So she was breaking bones in utero, and that's why her legs were crooked, because her legs were broken. So we said, I think that's what it is, but we'll test for it. So, and there's varying degrees of OI. Some people have it and they live beautiful, full lives. They're just more susceptible to breaking bones. But there's also the severe end of it, where it's not compatible with life, and as baby grows, baby breaks more bones. And so that was our diagnosis. And those 8 weeks were awful.
Right, yeah.
I very much retreated. I kept a very small bubble, very small circle of friends. Only a handful of family members knew that we were having complications. And it was very up and down. I did seek out a counselor in that time, but to be honest, it didn't help me. She wasn't a fit. And it was just really hard on all of us, mentally and emotionally, and a roller coaster of it's life-threatening, or maybe it could not be, or maybe it's just her legs. And then we thought, well, if it's just her legs, fine. Like, we'll deal with it, We'll sell the house and, make sure that our home is wheelchair accessible, or if she needs crutches or leg braces, like, it's fine, just as long as we have our baby. And then it was so up and down for those 8 weeks. And looking back, I wish that I hadn't kept it a secret for, again, that very reason, to have that support, because I was breaking down inside. And I just shut so many people out of my life, and it wasn't serving me, and it was not helping me at all. And then when it came time to tell everybody we had complications and we lost the baby, that was an even bigger blow to our friends and family.
Right.
And they were just extra shocked, and the loss affected them as well. Our families, my grandmother, because they were all expecting a new baby in the family, and now she's gone. So it was just a complete, mind, just a complete explosion and I wish I'd done a lot of things differently.
Right. And shock, right? It's a lot of shock about the news that you receive, and trying to figure out what to do and how to move forward. And and then the family dynamics in addition. I can see how that adds a lot to that as well. And so I know you mentioned that you, as we were chatting before this interview, you also mentioned that you do work with Tiny Footprint. And can you share a little bit about that organization?
Yeah. So Tiny Footprints is a nonprofit organization, and it was created in 2016. This year was the fourth. Yeah, this year was the fourth gala. It was created in 2016 by a group of women who also have experienced loss, and they wanted to do something for the pregnancy loss center at one of the hospitals, and for the NICU. So they thought, let's throw a fundraiser. And that fundraiser has now grown. And this year, they raised $140,000
Wow.
for the Calgary Health Trust. So all of that money goes back to the Calgary Health Trust, which is used for cuddle cots for the NICU. Last year, they expanded the pregnancy and infant loss program at the hospital, and they renovated their space. So it's bigger, it's better, beautiful, more comforting. They want to renovate the bereavement rooms at the hospital because right now they are very cold and clinical and sterile. They want to make them more homey, more welcoming, more beautiful. So money is being funneled into that. So $140,000 this year for that gala.
That's incredible. That is incredible.
The gala has grown. There was about almost 400 people there this year. There's 100 volunteers on the committee. And again, I got involved because I was talking to somebody about our loss and about Violet, and they said, "Have you heard of Tiny Footprints? This is what they do. It's a beautiful gala fundraising evening. They have a committee." I was like, "Sign me up. I'm in." And my first committee meeting, I believe, I joined late. I think it was in August of that year, and the gala is in October. And I walked into the committee meeting not knowing anybody, and I sat down at a kitchen table filled with, there was probably 40 ladies at this committee meeting. And at the beginning of the meeting, we always go around the room and introduce ourselves and tell our story if we feel like we want to share. And I just sat there and cried. There was 40 women in that room who had stories of loss. And it just blew me away because 2 years prior, I had felt so alone, and I felt like I'm the only person who's ever gone through this. And yet, here I am now surrounded with all of these people, and they welcomed me and took me in and hugged me. And now these beautiful friendships are growing out of this committee. And the gala it's a beautiful event, focusing on awareness and community and connection, and raising funds to better serve our community so people don't fall through the cracks.
Wonderful. That is amazing. I'm so happy that those resources are there and available for that renovation and for helping other women, because we know the statistics are 1 in 4 women experience some type of pregnancy loss. And so there are lots of women that will need help.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that statistic the last few days, and I kind of call BS on that. I feel like it's higher.
I feel like it's 50-50, to be honest. I feel like the 1 in 4 is what's reported. I feel like there's so many more losses that go unreported. And I agree with you completely, because if I were to take a poll of all of the moms in my moms groups, just about everyone I knew had some type of a miscarriage or pregnancy loss prior.
Yeah, I have a circle of very best girlfriends that I've known for 30 years. We all grew up on the same street growing up, and out of 5 of us, only 1 has not experienced a loss.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Where does this 1 in 4 come from?
Right, and those stats probably need to be updated. Yeah. Right, there needs to be some new kind of census done to evaluate that number. I agree completely. So now that you are doing this work that was inspired by Violet and your experiences, what advice do you have, and what's like the most important thing that you want to share with the people watching this?
That you're not alone. That unfortunately this happens, and there's it, it's awful that it cannot be prevented. But you're not alone, and you don't have to be alone. You don't have to feel isolated and secluded. That hopefully, wherever you are in this country, in this world, that there are resources and services available to help you, and that there are people, men and women, families, moms and dads, because I feel like dads get lost in the shuffle. There are so many people who can rally around you and just to give you a hug and let you feel your feelings and let you cry it out, punch it out, run it out, whatever you need to do. Because what I found over the last year and a half is this community is fierce. And the bond is pretty much instant when I meet somebody new, or somebody comes to our group, or I meet somebody at the Wave of Light last night. The bond in the community and the connection is instant. And that there are people out there who want to help. And this, loss and pregnancy and infant loss takes a toll on your heart and on your mental health. And it is just so important to reach out and let somebody know how you're feeling, and please get the help and the support, because it's awful and it's isolating and it takes a toll on you, but there's hope. And I'm 3 years out of my loss, and I never thought that I would be at this point. I never thought that I would be happy again. I never thought I could laugh. I never thought I would have another baby. There was a point where I said, I'm done. I can't do this again. There's no way. And I look at others who are further out than I am, 5, 10, 15 years, and see them thriving and living happy, joyful, amazing lives. And I just look at them and what they're doing, and they're, running legacies and charity runs and retreats. And it just fills me with so much hope and just so much inspiration and so much drive and fire for what I want to do. And there's so much more work that needs to be done. And I want to be a part of that. And I want to give back to all of that. So you're not alone in that, and there's hope.
Yes, I agree. And thank you so much for sharing. And one of the things that I like to say is that pregnancy loss is not something to, I don't know, like get over, right? Because that's what people will say. You should be over it. I don't feel like that's true. I feel like you can get to the other side of it. And I feel like that's a lot about, the work that I do. It's just helping women to get to that other side and come to a space of more of maybe acceptance, right? Because we can't change what has happened to us, but we can get to a space where we could look at our experience with a different perspective. And it appears that you have been able to do that as well, with what your experience of losing Violet, you're able to now help and support other people through the volunteer work and the work that you do. And I think that that's wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I am so grateful to have met you and to be able to spend this time to talk with you. And thank you for sharing your story about Violet. And if there's anybody in the Calgary area, right? That's what you said? Yeah, in the Calgary area, feel free to reach out to Jackie, and we can share some of the links of the organizations that she works with, so people can reach out as well.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. It can be, it's hard at first. And like I said, it took me a while to speak up and reach out. But I hope that when you do, you won't regret it.
Right. I agree. I agree. Yes. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. I appreciate your time, and thank you all for watching the replay. And I hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you so much.